starting to have this, and you have to realize, especially in this day and in this time, with the movement needs to move, and he wasn't going to, right? I mean, he beat his problem.
Wow, it was good.
I know, it doesn't matter. I know the story, yeah.
And I go to court, she comes in like every 2 months or something. I have to go to court to cover her. She always runs away from me, so I'm not going to blame her. This Aunt told me that.
I didn't say.
Where is he?
First coming.
These things don't start.
He's early in the mayor.
Oh, the mayor.
And there is one.
I work at City Hall. I live out at City Hall. Yeah, I know. Not really in the main office, luckily. Chili today.
I'll just have the electeds on the left and then everyone else on the right. Thank you. Also, like, all four of you, if you don't mind.
How are you? Oh, are you telling me it's fall? How are you? Kind of cool.
All right.
How are you? Oh, look at this. All right. We're squeezed.
That's good.
Come. How are you? Go on in. Anyone with a jet hat, we want you front and center.
Oh. Nice.
There we are. This is how you get the postal coaches. All right. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Scott Stringer, New York City Comptroller, and I want to thank John Ahn, who's going to be a commuter, who's going to be talking today, State Senator Toby Stavitsky, Assembly Member Neely Rozick, and Council Member Peter Koo, as well as many advocates and activists who are here with us today. These community leaders know all too well the problems of transportation, and that is why we are here today with our rail commuters, and we are here in Murray Hill at the Murray Hill Station. This station, along with 37 other Metro North and LIR, are stationed in Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. They are out of reach to 1.4 million residents who call these neighborhoods home. And that's because the MTA has created a two-tiered transit system. There's the commuter lines like this for people from Westchester and Long Island who use these trains to swiftly pass through our neighborhoods. And then there's what's left over for working New Yorkers who can't afford the price of these fast commuter trains. They get the overcrowded subways that break down every day and the slowest bus system in the nation. They get subways and buses that take twice as long to make the same exact trip in Manhattan. They get to spend hours more away from their families, struggling to get to work and trying to get home. It's not right and it's not fair. And it stands in the way of our efforts to fix New York City's transit crisis. Right now, it costs $9 to go one way from here at Murray Hill to Penn Station. And at other stations in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens, ticket prices are nearly 4 times as expensive as a Metro card swipe. 4 times as expensive. That doesn't even count the cost of transfers between buses and subways and the commuter rail. But it's not just the paywall that locks New Yorkers out. The trains themselves just aren't stopping. Now, during rush hour, these trains skip over city commuters 80% of the time. The trains go right by 80% of the time, and people are waving at New York City subway riders who can't access that train. Meanwhile, fast commuter rail is right here, with thousands of seats sitting empty. Every LIRR train that blows by has an average of 233 empty seats during the morning rush hour. And at the busiest time in the evening, nearly 300 seats are left empty on each train. That's thousands of empty seats gone to waste at a time when our subway and bus system is overcrowded, in crisis, and starved for funds. This must change. We believe the MTA should charge the $2.75 Metro card fare for all commuter rail trips within our city. Second, riders should be able to transfer across these trains to subway and a bus system for free in-city trips. And all commuter rail stations need to be made accessible for people with disabilities. Now, there's a lot of talk about how to efficiently expand our subway system, our transit system. And here's a solution that's hiding in plain sight. We estimate it would cost just $50 million per year, a tiny fraction compared to the billions of dollars we've spent on building new tunnels and stations. And the benefits to New Yorkers would be tremendous. It would improve job access, reduce commuter times, extend the reach of the transit system, and relieve overcrowding on the subway. New Yorkers deserve a transit system as great as the city they live in. But for too long, for too many transit riders, this two-tier system has gotten out of control. You can't have people from Westchester and Long Island coming into New York City and basically taking an expensive train directly to their jobs while we're stranding tens of thousands of New York City subway riders every day. It is time to equalize what's good for the suburbs must be good for the city, because at the end of the day, this will be good for everybody. The price tag to fix the subways is $40 billion. 4 new metro lines are proposed to cost $17 billion. We could open up almost 38 stations for the price tag of $50 million and allow people access to their jobs and to their families. Let us be proactive and let us demand equal access. We kick off this campaign today. And I'm also glad to be here with the people who know firsthand what it's like to have constituents who are bypassed during rush hour and throughout the day. These are elected officials and leaders who truly understand what's at stake when we think about all we have to do to fund our subway system. So let me start off with someone who knows this all too well, and that's our state senator, Toby Ann Stavitsky.
Thank you. Thank you, Comptroller, for coming.
Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Thank you for coming to Murray Hill. This is the other Murray Hill. People don't realize that we have a community here in Flushing. And the Comptroller's report last year and this August demonstrated the fact that there's been a large increase in the number of jobs. And in fact, this is the fourth largest job increase area in the city, and that's the Comptroller's staff, and he issued that report both last year and again this August.
Take your time.
No, the trains are more important because they're carrying people. As the Comptroller said, the increase in jobs and the increase in population result in an overcrowded number 7 line. And his suggestion of parity between the MTA and the LIRR, the interchangeability of the cost of riding the subway and the LIRR cannot be underestimated. This is an important step, I think, and we've got to do it. It makes sense. It's good for the economy, it's good for the community, and it's good for the people, not just of New York City, but New York State. So we thank you for everything that you have done, and I look forward to working with you in the days ahead.
Thank you, and I look forward to being with you in Albany to work on a lot of these issues. Next, we have somebody who has long fought for transportation issues in this community, and that's our great council member, Peter Koo.
Thank you, Comptroller Stringer, to coming Mary Hill to do this very important press conference about disparity of transportation needs. No, I'm City Council Member Peter Koo. I represent Flushing, which is one of the busiest transportation hubs. Almost every one of our transportation options are overcrowded. 21 bus lines are crammed with people. The 7 train is always jam-packed. Our streets are congested with cars, trucks, buses of every kind. But the Long Island Railroad is actually not that bad. There is something inherently wrong when commuters are packed like sardines on the 7 train, but the more expensive and more reliable Long Island Railroad, which is only 1 block away from 7 train station, has a lot of rooms. The solution is to adjust the pricing. It should not be cost prohibitive for residents of New York City to use their own transportation options. The residents of Flushing bear the burden of one of the busiest and biggest transportation hubs in the entire city. They should be treated fairly. So we and our residents and our constituents strongly support the Comptroller's proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. I look forward to working with you on this issue. And now we have someone who also has worked on these transportation issues, who we confer with a lot as we seek solutions in Albany, and that's State Assembly Member Neely Rosick.
Thank you, Scott. Comptroller Stringer. It's great to be here with so many community leaders and other elected officials on an issue that we out in Eastern Queens know all too well. I'm Neely Rosick. I'm the local assemblywoman. I represent a district that doesn't have a single subway station. In fact, all of my constituents wholly rely on slow bus service and direct transfers either to a subway station far off or the LIRR. And I want to commend the Comptroller for doing this report, putting out this report, and being an advocate for outer borough transit deserts, because at the end of the day, too many of us are being left stranded, whether you're trying to get to school or whether you're commuting into Manhattan for work. Going to and from should be a lot easier. And at the end of the day, the Comptroller's right. If you slash prices, you'll slash people's commutes. And that will change people's lives. Not just getting into Manhattan and commuting every single day, but if you think about it, a lot of the economy and a lot of Queens' economy is wholly dependent on people who go from Eastern Queens to Western Queens. People who just want to get to the places where their jobs are. And so if we had more LIRR stations, or if we had more LIRR stops between Murray Hill, between Woodside, between Long Island City, I think that would be mutually beneficial for all neighborhoods across Queens. So I just wanted to thank Comptroller Stringer again for highlighting this issue and something that we have always had on our minds, but hopefully we'll see in action next year. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And let's hear from somebody who deals with this every day, our commuter, John On. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Comptroller Scott Stringer. My name is John On, and I am the commuter. I take the LIRR every day to work. You know, I work for the Board of Election City of New York, you know, which is near Wall Street, and I have to take the LIRR train to get to Penn Station, and from Penn Station I have to take 2, and then transfer to 1. And for for LIRR, Long Island Railroad, I have to pay monthly. I have to get unlimited monthly, and I have to pay $226. And plus that, I have to get a Metro card, which is $121. So every month I gotta spend $350 for commuting, and I think it's expensive. And I'm really thankful that Comptroller Scott Stringer and elected officials working on these issues, and if they could improve in terms of price and also those people who's using these services to commute to work, that would be great. And I really appreciate and thank them for their work, and thank you for coming out today, and I hope this issue could be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thomas Chen is here representing a tremendous constituency in our city in the Korean community. Kevin Yoon is here. Michael Feiner is here. Justin Daly, who's a St. John student, is joining us today. Minwell Yang, and CB4 member, is also here. And I want to just thank everybody for joining us as we start to grapple with the transportation crisis. And now, if any members of the press have questions for us, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
Two questions first. The MTA is currently piloting a similar program to what you're calling for. Have you talked to them at all about whether or not there's been success there, or what findings you've seen? And then the second question I had is, given the kind of abysmal rate of LIRR service, do you think the MTA could pull off something like this with service as it is now?
Well, for the program that they're piloting is but 10 stations in a very restricted area. And that's not what we need in a transit crisis. They know full well that there is a real opportunity to break ground by being bold and looking at this report and opening up what could be 38 stations. So I don't think that piecemeal will solve the crisis. The commuters here cannot wait for this. The elected officials have urged a more expansive approach, and I commend them for doing that. But the data is clear and the cost is clear. There's no longer any time to waste or wait. This is such a outrageous situation, should never have gone on this long. And finally, your second question, yes, they have to improve service. But right now, we also have to give access to people. I find it incredible that hundreds of seats are available every morning, hundreds more are available every evening, and we have the people who need those seats. And they're the folks who live in Bayside and throughout our city in Southeast Queens, and they're not getting that access. Senator Stavitsky mentioned part of this report, and I thank you for reading the whole report. But
It's not that long.
thank you. But 84% of cities' employment growth has happened in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. 73% of the city's residential growth is about Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens. So even if we did not have the crisis we had, the fact that we are seeing a sea change in our economy, the economy is growing in these boroughs, and yet the transit desert mentality is alive and well because we can't connect two systems that literally are running parallel. One for the wealthy people in Westchester, and the second is a system that's decaying for the rest of us. And it's time to equalize that, and it's time that our state and city come to terms with that.
Have you looked at how many stops would be needed
Well, we think there's 38 stops that could be added along the way, meaning those stops would be open. Again, I'm not micromanaging the system. There's a pool of 38. You could come close to that. But we believe that a huge amount of time could be saved for commuters if they had access to the LIRR and the Metro North. In some cases, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it could save 90 minutes. I mean, a huge amount of time. We're not dealing with 5 minutes or 3 minutes. We're talking about a total sea change in the time it takes to get to work, whether you're working in Manhattan, but more likely working within the borough you reside in. But again, we have to paint this picture that is very clear to the commuters here, and that is, you're standing at a platform. You have to get to work. Today, you know, you look at the G line, the B line. If you notice this morning, it's almost like the train just stopped running. They woke up and said, we don't want to run this morning. So now you're sitting there waiting for that one train, and yet you see all these other trains come zipping by, and you try to peer into the window, and there are these commuters putting their bags next to the empty seat, and they're sitting there having the time of their lives. They pay $10 for the trip, and it's like the express train to Nirvana. And then the people on the platforms, I mean, they're just hunched over, can't believe this is happening to them. They're late for work, businesses are losing billions of dollars, and the politicians at the MTA are sitting there with their eyes closed to this. We came here this morning to say enough is enough. We are breaking this down for people and transit officials. Just open up the lines, and then we will go a long way to solving the delays that are plaguing our system. I'm sorry.
Save time for people in the city. People in the burbs will be making extra stops. Their commutes will be longer. If they want to pay, they're paying for a commute that's longer.
The minutes that they're saving for their luxury liner, we don't want them to have delays, but you're talking mere minutes compared to what's going on. And by the way, their ride is just fine. And then there's some stops in the city that they go to, right? So it's not like, you know, they get from their house to their metro stop or the LIR stop, and it's clear sailing for them for most of the way. And all we're asking them to do is pick up a few people along the way. Help us out here. We have a transit crisis, and they are not exempt from helping to deal with this crisis, in my view.
When you're saying that you can cut 3 times in half in New York City with this plan, are you factoring in the fact that you're going to be adding extra stops along the way in New York City?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. At the end of the day, we will save time. I don't have the plan, but we will save a significant amount of time. We will give people access to another mode of transportation, another train that is passing them by, and it's critical now because everybody who's riding the rails knows that the trains are not coming. People are stuck in the stations. I heard complaints from all over the city today, from Bronx and Brooklyn. We have an antiquated bus system. So I don't want to be dramatic, but there's not a person who doesn't think that we are in a state of economic emergency because of the subway and bus crisis. So here we have a whole parallel system that could be utilized in this emergency, and we are simply ignoring the obvious.
Have you specifically asked the MTA about your plan, and what about, say, officials that represent Long Island and upstate New York? Their constituents might feel that if we're taking extra stops, they should lower our price. How would you respond to that?
Well, here's the thing. This is a $40 billion crisis, and we're going to need Long Island and New York City to come together on these issues. But what I would say to those legislators, it is in the best interest of everybody that workers and folks can get to work at the same time on time. And that the more we start thinking intelligently about this crisis, the more we save money for the city and the state, and we invest in our business community. you talk about having to open up new stations. The costs are huge. 4 stations cost will cost $17 billion. For a $50 million cost, we can open up the system, and that's something we should do. All right, thank you all for coming. Thank you for reporting on this. Thank you, and thank you, officials. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You know, I worked 27 years.
By the way, we also have Assemblyman Ron Kim's rep. Tony is here. Thank you, Ron, for being here and part of this.
Scott, you know, we got rid of the commuter tax.
Yeah, I do. Right.
Yeah.
I do.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I thought about you. I know I applaud you.
I know, I bet.